morning, everyone, and welcome again to our third convening of our Manufacturing Technology Working Group. My name is Jackie Garofano, and I am the CTO at CCAT, which is the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology. So I'll be driving the front end of this meeting today, and then I'll be kicking it over to my colleague, Jeff Orzik from Constep. So I think we have critical mass on the meeting today. We have nearly 30 participants, which is fantastic. So over the last 6 weeks that we've been convening, we've seen really great attendance. So thank you so much for your participation. Here's our agenda for today. We're going to just do a quick welcome and level set, and then we'll have an opportunity for CT Next to be our featured spotlight for our i4.0 service provider. And if you'll recall, in the previous meeting, we had CCAT and Constep serve that purpose. And in meetings going forward, we'll also be able to highlight other providers. So someone will be tapped on the shoulder to participate in our upcoming meeting. And then we've worked offline over the last week to identify work streams. And so Jeff has outreach to each of you. And so we'll get into that body of work, hit on next steps after we break out into our respective work stream groups and then adjourn. So a jam-packed agenda for today. Thank you again for your attendance, and also to Corliss and Ginger for administrating behind the scenes. Before we really get underway, I'd like to acknowledge and congratulate Senator Hartley for her recognition last evening at the Manufacturer CT Annual Celebration. So she and State Rep Kara Rochelle were acknowledged and honored for their work across the manufacturing ecosystem with an inaugural award for outstanding leadership government affairs. So I know that we have Jill on and many other folks that were in attendance last evening. So there was a really beautiful chest piece that was, or chest set, I should say, that was developed by Platt Tech students down in Milford, which is phenomenal. That's my hometown, so I have some pride there. And just really thank you, Senator, for your work, and as well, the majority of all of you that are were acknowledged and celebrated last night. So it was a really wonderful event. I'll take a pause and a breath to see if anyone wants to say any words or if the senator is with us. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead, multiple screens. I don't see, but I'll just take a pause. But congratulations, and we all give you a virtual applause, and thank you so much for your leadership. And I don't believe she's on. I'm just scanning the participant.
No, she is not on yet.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, if you weren't aware, now you are. And so please, send your congratulations over to Senator Hartley afterwards. So I'll turn the floor over to Jessica Dodge, who's going to give us our spotlight on CT Next.
Great. Thank you so much, Jackie. Hoping everybody can hear me. Good morning, everyone. I love nodding little squares. Thank you. I appreciate that. My name is Jessica Dodge. I believe at this point I've had the pleasure of at least seeing virtually many of you, but I know many of us are still getting acquainted. My role here at CT Next is the Director of Operations and Programs. And so what we do at CT Next is equip early stage companies with access to resources in an effort to make sure that those early stage businesses are still doing the hard work that they would otherwise be doing in an effort to grow their businesses. We want to make that journey a little bit easier and go a little faster for them. And so the screen to the sort of panel to the right here really addresses a little bit more on the things related to how we do that. We do a lot of network cultivation. We have a number of initiatives that we support that are really driven by these public-private partnerships. And I know all that can kind of get a little like buzzwordy, and it's not meant to be. I'm sort of saying it flippantly like that because I think in this arena, it's really important to be pretty candid and making sure that we're effective in the use of everybody's time. And there's a lot that kind of is unpacked beneath those partnerships that I just felt was really great. And thank you to Jackie and Jeff for the opportunity to kind of talk a little bit to this point today. We are not an entity that exclusively services manufacturers. We are a membership-driven organization, and many of our members work in fields either in manufacturing or with technologies that require elements of manufacturing and are related as such. So it's a little bit unique for us as a provider, but that certainly by no stretch is to suggest that there's not a ton of opportunity for us to really make sure that we are galvanizing efforts on a call like this and with initiatives like this to make sure that services that are more intentful in servicing manufacturers specifically can really be leveraged for what we've got going on. But because we are not an entity perhaps addressed directly as one that would service manufacturers or Industry 4.0 exclusively, as some of our other colleagues on the provider side might be, we don't want to get buried in the shuffle there if there is stuff that we can do to be helpful. So in a nutshell, a lot of what we do is really direct to company resources, be they ones in which there are programs or initiatives in which I would refer to them as sort of fundamental services of information share. We have mentors and startup advisors. We have a member directory on our website. So individuals that would otherwise be looking for co-founders or those with other technical proficiencies can use those tools as well. And then we have a number of initiatives. I'm going to jump past SBIR just very quickly because I want to make sure I kind of hammer that right at the end there since it's most relevant for this group. But a number of other initiatives related to talent retention and talent training as well. How do we do that? We have a number of grant programs that we run that are direct to company, meaning Acme Company is in need of funding to do Project A. There are areas of criteria and review. They meet those and we're able to grant funds directly to them. All of the funding that we deploy through CT Next is all grant funding and it's all via the state of Connecticut. We are, however, a quasi-state, so many of you may be perhaps more familiar with our parent organization, Connecticut Innovations. We, back in 2016, were spun out by the legislature as our own entity, and it's really been an amazing opportunity. Innovation Places, noted under our ecosystem development grants, is probably the most prominent and well-known initiative to spin from that establishment of us as our own entity. It's a little dangerous there because it looks like it's just one thing, but Innovation Places is regional, place-based support to companies and really sort of at the ground level. So it engages anchor institutions like our university partners, like our larger private industry firms, elements of walkability and just sort of that. I'm gonna, again, be a little like real, the cool factor that's really important in where we live if we're trying to make sure that we're attracting and retaining talent in an effort to enhance innovation and build on those entrepreneurial interests of our peers here in the state. Connecticut Innovations, I did make reference to on the slide as well, since they do typical investing. And we obviously serve in part as a pipeline to them, being that they are a parent organization. And the investment strategies that they would use are typical to that of a venture capital firm. So it's an evergreen fund, there's an equity stake in the business. And some of our scaling technology companies in particular are going to be most familiar with that entity because it's the most, I believe Connecticut Innovations is the most popular and common early stage investor in New England in this general region of our country. So very well known, obviously, at the state level. So in short order, there are a few different tactics here. It's a lot on a slide, so I certainly don't want to go line by line and drone on and on about it. But I do just want to, as my bookend, sort of call attention to the Sbir Acceleration initiatives that we do. So Sbir was something that came up even in the early surveys that we did via this working group. And it's really important to stress that we are at CT Next, for all intents and purposes, the office for Sbir for the state of Connecticut. So part of our charge as an organization is to make sure that within the pie that is Sbir and STTR federal dollars available, Connecticut is getting as big a slice of it as possible. We do that in a few different ways. And again, with respect to manufacturing and Industry 4.0 specifically, most of the work that we do is on the proposal review side. We have individuals that operate with us here at CT Next that will actually sit across the table and work through an application to make sure that the 17% likelihood you might have in submitting an application the first time around to a phase one is up in the neighborhood of 40 to 60%, which is what we typically would see in the portfolio of companies that we service when they go for it their first time around. Working through that application process, and then also the follow-on support. So phase ones are really important. They open that door, but they're not the end all be all. We want to make sure that our companies, where possible, are also getting to that phase 2 for larger infusions of dollars, but also really bigger boosts for the commercialization side of these technologies. Typically, the companies that we service through SBIR are more dominantly NSF, NIH. They do tend to be on the health sciences side of things, but it's not to say that we do a ton of work with DoD as well. And so about every 3 months to once a quarter, we try to do something in the way of a workshop where we will invite, and we'll continue now to grow our list, and including you all as well, for those that are considering SBIR funding as a real viable opportunity to bring dollars into their businesses. Really just an access point with some of that one-on-one consulting once more to make sure that we are enhancing the likelihood that, again, that slice of pie is bigger for the state of Connecticut. Manufacturing, as you can imagine, is a piece of this. We see various industries across the spectrum. Our services are very much industry agnostic on many fronts, although we dominate our attention and dedication to that of tech-based businesses and sort of innovative industries of sorts, which has taken on amazing shapes over the years. So I'll pause there for questions. I certainly don't want to be too much more long-winded than that because it is a lot. But for all intents and purposes, the sort of take-home point here is that if there's a company at any point within the growth spectrum, be from newly established to sort of really hunkering down and making this a viable business, all the way through that of scale and growth, we want to know how to best service you. And so plugging into the network at CT Next wherever possible doesn't always mean that we'll be the one servicing you at the end, but it will mean that we'll plug you into the right party to ensure that we are, again, catalyzing that opportunity to make sure that we can get you there faster. I do see a question from Mike. I can see my hand raised icon there. Thank you for the question, Mike.
Can a company engage with CT Next solely for the purpose of the consultative support on SBIR?
Absolutely. The support services that we have across the board here that look like they're a list of almost progression are not. As you all probably know better than anybody, entrepreneurship and the sort of startup stream is not linear. It definitely kind of cycles back and forth and is a little bit more ebb and flow than anything. So no condition at all. There is a review process specific to SBIR. So conceivably just ensuring that there's really a readiness. We want to make sure that the company is got a good baseline and we help them get there prior to really making sure that we are funding the supportive efforts to get the application itself in, just in an effort to be best in use of everyone's time, but absolutely no condition to it. And no agency condition, no industry condition, no phase condition. We've even supported on occasion an EDA grant here or there by use of our programming as well. All that support directly through SBIR is completely free as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Hi, Jess. It's Matt Cohen from Medtronic.
Hi.
Just wondering about hello. Just wondering about large organizations like Medtronic that reside in the state of Connecticut. We have a R&D center in North Haven. 350 scientists and engineers. I'm wondering, has CT Next kind of docked in or plugged into a company like Medtronic, not necessarily to garner the benefits of CT Next, but more to partnership on opportunities to provide support for some of the companies within CT Next and or just develop good insights to what's going on in the state around medical devices?
That is a fantastic question, and I'm really glad you asked it. So you're right. No, larger companies like yours wouldn't really be an appropriate fit for one-on-one consulting on the R&D side for SBIR proposals now. However, we do have via our Innovation Places initiative representation actually through colleagues, I believe of yours, even through Medtronic there, at various different initiatives that are happening more regional and localized, in that case to the Hartford region, and working on a MedTech accelerator. But absolutely, we're always looking for ways to continue to engage with the larger institutions that may have these smaller units of R&D within the larger entity itself. And Innovation Places is typically how we would engage and plug you all in. Innovation places, in summary, as I mentioned, it looks like it's just one item here in a bullet pointed list. We have 4 regions around the state that were all sort of sourced via a competitive process, where based on a Brookings Institute study from a few years back, the very, very short synopsis of a roughly 80-page report is that if you have a concentration of anchor institutions, walkability and placemaking, innovative entrepreneurial populace, as well as access to mass transit, the likelihood in which entrepreneurship and innovation is designed to thrive is amplified. And so our 4 innovation places are designated as Stamford, New Haven, Hartford, and then the Thames River area, which is inclusive of New London and Groton. I won't go too far down the rabbit hole there, but to sort of more specifically address your question, Matt, the way in which we've engaged some of those larger institutions has more recently been in the regional capacity in which they serve as program partners, in some cases, even funding match for programming. They sit on our boards there locally through Innovation Places. And that particular program is one that via our recent legislative session this past year, we are looking to scale to engage additional communities in as well. So great question. Absolutely not the right fit for one-on-one consulting on the SBIR front, but plugging in, we'd love to do more of it and continue to.
Yeah, the latter there is of great interest in, yeah, maybe even just starting with an offline conversation with CT Next to see what has been done with large organizations and what the path forward is. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And you know, what a great value proposition too, or an add-on to the value proposition for the state of Connecticut itself. If you know, we can start to get some of this stuff to crystallize. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much. Glad you asked it. Thank you. Eric, it looks like you have a hand raised.
Yeah, hi, Jessica. Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Just wanted to circle back. You mentioned that CT Next is a membership organization. Can you just briefly expound on that? It is when someone comes to you for assistance, is there some sort of application criteria, or is it more once you're working with somebody, you know, they're considered a member, maybe similar to what you would use the term client for?
Yeah, great question. So membership for us is entirely free. Membership is typically derived of the individuals that have interest in participating or are themselves participants or beneficiaries of service, if you will, via any of our programs. We do have a larger network which engages things like you know, judges at various events or network partners or anybody that is a sort of systemic ally to some of our initiatives. That's you know, much larger, but membership is completely free. There is no condition to membership. What it does for us is, given that we are a grant-based organization, data that we retain and just really knowing who we're servicing allows us as a quasi-state to be nimble and respond to the needs of the demographic that we're servicing or that is presenting itself as most interested in our programming, to respond accordingly. So, you know, talent retention, a great example. It's sort of recently developed in a lot of ways that's been amplified because that was coming up via our intake process for membership as something that was in a need that we needed to address. So as a small example there, that's what we mean by membership.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And encourage you all, if you are interested, to become members at ctnext.com because it is free. But also that way, if there are other functions and opportunities for events and networking to industries certainly related to your respective fields, but also really akin in other capacities, you know, there's a good way to kind of plug in and know about it. Additionally, I will confess that many of our startups are always a little you know, I would say perhaps interested, but somewhat intimidated in ways to be most effective in learning more about ways to actually produce their products. And so manufacturing, obviously, as a way to plug in here locally, even more so via tools like our directory, is always a good thing as well.
Thanks, Jessica. Mike, I do see your hand raised again. Do you have any follow-up? Or you?
I think it kind of tanked on Matt and then Eric, and I think it came around in the end where, you know, is there a role for, we're certainly not, you know, anywhere near the degree of a Medtronic, But again, we have active involvement with supporting startups, prototyping other things. So is there a place for a company like PTA or others as in our network to become members of CT Next? And it sounds like there is.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would draw attention to even our mentor network and, just various initiatives in which we will have somebody with a physical product that needs some degree of engineering to produce it. We do want them to have more opportunity to do it here locally. It's an area via bandwidth, again, with manufacturing being a piece of our work, not necessarily as dedicated one-on-one, but really in the broad stroke, we'd love to incorporate more in the way of manufacturing because it is something that our companies do ask about.
Great. Thanks so much, Jessica. I think everyone really got a great sense of digging into CT Next, and your organization is quite powerful, and coupled with technology partners and those of us that are on the line, just bringing that awareness and attention, and then how we could build more collaboration across friendly lines, I guess. So thank you so much for that. I encourage us all, if we're not already, to be tagged into CT Next. Jessica had given direction of how to join as a member just to get on the mailing list, and a whole bunch more. So thank you, Jessica. I do want to acknowledge and backpedal just a bit, because I know that Senator Hartley had joined us just after the kudos. So Madam, just want to acknowledge your award last night and congratulate you before we then dig into more of the program, and I turn the floor over to Jeff. So we were giving you a virtual round of applause earlier before you had joined.
Many thanks to all, and that was a lovely award. I'm going to be playing a lot more chess. It was a chessboard made by the tech kids. Really creative, but most of all, it was energizing to be in that room with that group of manufacturers, which are such an important pillar in Connecticut's economy. Thank you.
Great. So Jeff, I'll turn the floor over to you, so that way you could talk us through more of the work streams and the work ahead of us in the back 30 minutes of our meeting today.
Okay, thank you. As we decide to move forward, it was important to us to understand, really get down to getting some work done and addressing the things that needed to happen. And so we as a leadership group put together 4 work streams that we hope will move us forward in the direction of what the legislation asks and moving towards the strategic plan that we want to get out. The first work stream is a value stream map of the ecosystem. And so there we're looking out to look at the current state of the provider network, as well as identify gaps that may exist in that network. That work stream will be led by Constep, myself, and one of our continuous improvement consultants will help to drive that. Secondly, there's a resources work stream, which is going to focus on the SBIR, STTR direction in the state and other grant opportunities and resources, and that will be led by Jessica in CT Next. Lastly, our third is an outreach work stream, which is to have manufacturers discuss how we can better raise awareness of the resources that are available. Very much highlighted in our survey 2 weeks ago, as well as kind of the responses to Jessica's update, is that there is definitely a need to get information out there more. And we want to figure out the best way of doing that, because clearly creating working groups is not the most effective way to spread information about the resources that are available in Connecticut. Still to be confirmed, but we're hoping that the CMO's office will lead that. And then lastly, there is an objective to do an ecosystem mapping Really, that's just a comprehensive catalog, and so we'll be looking not so much as a team there, but as a way to reach out to all of you to make sure we capture the state and federally funded entities that are providing services in Industry 4.0. And so as part of that, we used the survey that we did 2 weeks ago to kind of gear where companies and service providers would end up in the work streams. As we do that, we will break into breakout groups during this meeting, and most of you have been pre-assigned a breakout group based on the work stream you've been placed in, and I let you all know individually what those work streams were Monday evening. And so there are some of you who are not pre-assigned a work stream, and Coralise, if I'm correct, you'll be able to move them into one, or they'll be able to select one that makes sense, correct?
Yes, so the breakout rooms will open, and then the people left over, we can have a conversation as to where you want to go.
So they can move into the correct ones. So first, you want to go back to value stream? Thank you. So first for value stream, we have Webco, Schwertel, MDI, Habco, Horst, AGR, the Connecticut Council of Universities and Colleges, Independent Colleges, UConn, I forgot what that last one is, Collins, and Stanley Black & Decker. And so we'll ask you to come together in the breakout group for that. For outreach, is outreach next to resources? For resources, again, led by CT Next, PT Plastic, Bead Industry, OPM, and Yale will have you guys be on that work stream. And then outreach, hopefully led by CCAT and the CMC, and that will include Microboard, OK Industries, Carey, SBA, Stanley Black & Decker, Medtronics, the Connecticut State Colleges and University System, and DECD, and the Chamber of Commerce. Beatrice, Jackie, anything else you want to add?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay.
I think so too. So ideally what we want to do is to be able to level set with each other. We recognize that the inception of these work streams is going to be fluid until we really have a good understanding of what our scope is. And that's why we're bringing everyone together in these respective 3 breakout rooms. Again, the ecosystem mapping is offline for the time being. So we're going to focus really on these 3. Reintroduce yourselves to each other. Certainly the VSM has the largest of the teams, and those are really those entities that have a good, solid understanding of the operations and inner workings of the current ecosystem of current state. With respect to the others, I'm jumping into outreach to just facilitate that conversation. Again, I think we could monitor if we want to not necessarily spend a full 30 minutes. We could, have the core team pop in and out. If we have that mobility, I'll look to Corliss to DM me on that. But again, level set, let's try to scope, get your first thoughts. And then ideally going forward, we want our work streams to be mobilized. And with that, take offline conversations, come back to the group. As you heard earlier, the core team does meet on a weekly basis. So after this, we will debrief and then we will plan for the upcoming meeting. So would love to be able to keep an open dialogue as we're all navigating through this. So appreciate your participation in the breakouts to follow, and certainly raise your hand or call upon Corliss or Ginger or even myself or Jeff if you have any questions or concerns as we go through this exercise.
Yeah, and while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions that we should address in the full group, I will point out that as we move to work streams, it does give us an ability to potentially add additional resources that may make sense the structure of the working group as a whole is somewhat defined by legislation, and we need to be careful there that we keep the correct balance that's called out in the legislation. But if we need to bring in additional resources to the work stream, please let your work stream leader know, and that's something that we have room to do. Awareness there for the whole group. Any questions on the work streams or moving forward? I don't see any hands unless I'm missing anything. No. Okay. All right, Coralise, I think we can now break off into the work streams, and we'll have each of those introduce themselves and start to get moving.
Okay, here we go. Okay, I think everybody's in. I don't know where you all want to be placed. I thought I had put Kyle with Colin, but I guess that didn't work.
I don't mind going to the value stream mapping just because Comstead leads that. So I'll just want to make sure that we're in the right thinking there.
Okay. Hold on.
According to what I saw, I am supposed to be also in the value stream mapping group.
Yes. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Okay. Should move you any second. All right, Ron.
I'm just we're trying to figure out where Jackie is, so we don't.
Jackie went to outreach.
She did do the outreach.
There's only 3 people on resource.
Do we have a bunch in outreach? I just want to make sure we're all covered, right?
We have about 10 people, 8 people in outreach. Chris is in there. Colin's in there. Marty Guay, Nicole, Carry Manufacturing, and SBA is in there.
Okay, I wonder if so. Who's leading? So the resource, you got Jessica and resource.
Yes.
All right, I guess I'll jump to the outreach then. That's fine.
Okay.
Good seeing you, Senator. Late night last night.
Oh yeah, it was, but it was a lovely night. Yeah. So listen, where do you have the fewest people? I mean, I'm very interested in value stream as well as outreach, but tell me where the numbers are if you need people.
The fewest people are in resources. But if you want to jump in and out, just write to me and I can move you.
Okay, well, put me into resources now, and then I'll probably want to just kind of check into value stream.
Okay. What about you, Senator Martin? You're muted. You're muted, Senator. Okay, I think
Yeah.
now.
Corliss, you there?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Yeah, resources. I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, another day I'll go into another committee.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Ginger, what happens to the recording if we're in breakout rooms?
I actually don't know. I've never had to broadcast while in breakout rooms before.
Okay, I guess we'll figure that out. Do you want to go anywhere?
Nope. I mean, I think I'm okay. Okay. You let me know if I can, support you in any other way. Okay. I'm just gonna jump around to see if everybody's okay. Okay. Let me know. Okay.
So just be aware we are still streaming.
Hi. Jackie and I were having a discussion on whether to bring people back or just say, see you in 2 weeks. What do you guys think?
So Coralise, we are still streaming, just to let you know. I think we let most of the VSM group go.
Mhm.
So
Okay, I'm just going to write to everybody so that way people can be on the same page.
yep.
All right, perfect. So I think we still have some folks that may or may not be in a breakout room. I cannot see. I was just in the outreach breakout room. So rather than pulling up my slide deck again, I'll just wrap up by saying that we'll reconvene again in 2 weeks' time. So on October 13th, we'll have our other meeting. Our work stream leaders have their marching orders. So the intent is to really take these conversations forward offline and tag up in the interim. So thank you all so much for participating and enjoy the rest of your day.
Jackie, are we staying on this or are we moving to the other one?
We are staying here.
Jeff, great. So Corliss will join. How'd your groups go, guys?
Is Colin gonna join us here?
I think he had to jump. I think he's in a meeting with Chris.
We're still live, just to.
Yeah.
I can't.
I did notice that, Jeff.
Okay.
But it looks, Ginger, it looks like we only have us. There we go. We're gonna stop the recording.
Just trying to wrap up in the other rooms.
Ginger, are you managing? Because we don't need the recording anymore. Public meeting is over.
Yep. So I'm just waiting to hear back from Corley to make sure that all the other rooms are wrapped up. I'll stop that in a second.
That better, Jeff?
I think we're still
wrapping up. So they might come back. We have to start recording.
Can you stop the live stream as well, or is that just lagging behind?
I'm working on it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just having some difficulties ending the stream, but I am trying to resolve that now.
So folks, I'm just checking in. Are we going to do a debrief? What next?
Yeah, so we've already, said our goodbyes to the other two breakout rooms. So thank you to the Resources SBIR team for hanging in there past the hour. So Henry, I think if you'd like to drop